Coming up on Arirang News, data show the number of people employed in South Korea last year fell by the most since the Asian financial crisis 22 years ago. The service sector and young people hit the hardest. At the Consumer Electronics Show, companies are showing off new technologies that enable medical diagnoses, treatments, and monitoring at home. And the companies there include several from South Korea. And the pandemic's third wave in South Korea continues to subside. A local firm is due to announce the latest results from trials of a coronavirus treatment this evening. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korean officials have been saying that the country's third wave of COVID-19 is easing. Again today, the number of new cases was in the 500s, which is a big decline from last week. And a local company is set to release the results of the second phase of clinical trials for its coronavirus treatment this evening. Han Sung-woo reports.
South Korea reported 562 new COVID-19 cases on Wednesday. 536 of the new infections were locally transmitted, and over 350 of them came from Seoul and the surrounding area. With cluster infections at nursing homes and churches still threatening public safety, the total tally has now surpassed 70,000, less than 2 weeks after hitting the 60,000 mark. 20 more fatalities have pushed the death toll up to 1,185. Meanwhile, the National Health Insurance Service has announced it will claim indemnities from the BTJ Center for All Nations, a missionary facility in Gyeongsangbuk-do Province reportedly responsible for close to 600 infections so far. The center has been accused of disrupting virus prevention measures by refusing epidemiological investigations.
We will have to limit the scale of the pandemic as much as possible until February, when vaccination and the introduction of treatments can begin step by step. Only then can prevention measures be carefully eased for industries that have been severely damaged.
South Korea plans to inoculate healthy adults aged 19 to 49 starting in the third quarter of 2021. They will be given shots after those designated as priority recommendation groups have received their vaccines. The Central Disease Control Headquarters said on Tuesday that it is pushing to inoculate the population and achieve herd immunity as fast as possible. Hopes are high for the development of treatments as well. Korean biopharmaceutical firm Celltrion is scheduled to disclose its COVID-19 antibody therapies Phase 2 clinical trial results on Wednesday evening. Called Recurona, the treatment currently awaits emergency use authorization from the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
The United States is reportedly going to start requiring all international airline passengers to show proof of a negative COVID-19 test before boarding flights to the country. Citing people familiar with the matter, the Wall Street Journal reports that the CDC is planning to issue the order as soon as Tuesday, following weeks of discussions between federal agencies and the White House COVID-19 task force. The order is expected to go into effect on January 26th. Last year, as in other countries, the pandemic cost South Korea a huge number of jobs. The average for the year of the number of people employed fell by the most since the Asian financial crisis more than 20 years ago. The service industry was by far the hardest hit. The government's going to try to help by doing more of its hiring in the first half of the year. Ji-young has the details.
The COVID-19 outbreak has taken its toll on South Korea's job market, which has seen its worst annual performance since the Asian financial crisis. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, the average number of people in employment in 2020 was roughly 27 million, down 218,000 from the previous year. This is the largest drop since 1998 in the aftermath of Asian financial crisis 22 years ago. It is also the first time the average number of people employed has dropped in 11 years. Since last March, when the pandemic began to affect the economy, employment figures fell for 10 consecutive months on-year, which marks the longest period of on-year decline since 1999. Roughly 26.5 million people were employed in December, down 628,000 on year.
The on-year decline for the number employed in December worsened because of the strengthened social distancing measures since December 8th.
The official from Statistics Korea said the most job losses last year were in the service industry. The wholesale and retail sector saw the largest drop, falling by 160,000 jobs, or by 4.4% compared to 2019. Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi said in an economic ministerial meeting on Wednesday that the repercussions of COVID-19 in the job market are expected to last through January and February as well. He said the government will hire at least 45% of its annual public sector intake within the first half of the year. He also said the government will come up with measures within the first quarter to hire more young people and women. 엄지영, Arirang News.
In the post-pandemic era, through its Korean New Deal initiative, the South Korean government is aiming to secure the country a dominant share in the global digital and green industries. At a meeting Wednesday of economy-related ministers, Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi said the government will inject roughly $27 billion over the next 5 years into supporting exports in both sectors. Under the plan, it's going to do this through an export financing program. Its plan aims to help eco-friendly companies expand their overseas contracts for renewable energy products from the 15 gigawatts they had in 2019 to 30 gigawatts. Also, it'll help digital firms expand their exports to $250 billion. In light of the pandemic, there's a great deal of interest at this year's Consumer Electronics Show in innovative digital solutions that enable medical treatment, monitoring, and diagnosis at home. Our Kim Sung-min takes a closer look.
From wearable devices to telehealth and virtual care. At this year's CES, global healthcare leaders are focused on connecting patients with doctors more easily during the pandemic through ever more personalized solutions that are tuned to meet the needs of users. This means healthcare has partly moved out of hospitals. Global healthcare leader Philips is highlighting a remote monitoring system for pregnant women. They can put sensors on their belly at home that connect with hospitals to ensure their unborn baby is growing well. And this is part of Philips' goal to develop smart devices that understand potential health issues.
If you stick this little thing on your body, it will start understanding you. It will start understanding your vital signs. And then we want to contextualize that and make sure that we can turn that into guidance.
For those concerned about their blood pressure, Omron VitalSight is introducing its everyday blood pressure management devices. These gadgets send real-time data to a mobile app as well as to clinicians, providing remote guidance to the user. Along with other global health tech leaders, South Korean healthcare startup M2S is at CES with its Best of Innovation Award-winning product, VROR Eye Doctor. Using AI and VR techniques, people can analyze their eyesight at home as well as receive treatment. The virtual space created by VR allows various tests and treatments to be done in a small space.
The trend in digital health is developing in a way to provide medical services to the broader public in a more convenient way. It will become miniaturized, personalized, and more accessible for the public.
The digital healthcare solutions at CES 2021 show patients and doctors and healthcare worker to healthcare worker can be connected even during this pandemic, offering broader healthcare opportunities to the public. Kim Sung-min, Arirang News.
Also taking part in the Consumer Electronics Show are 15 startups chosen by the Seoul city government. One of them aims to address the issue of food waste, while another can diagnose heart problems just by scanning your iris. Jang Tae-hyun went to check them out and files this report.
1/3 of all food around the world is thrown away, while 11% of the global population is suffering from famine. To address the issue of food waste, South Korean startup Nuvi Lab has developed an artificial intelligence food scanner, one of the 15 innovative startups which Seoul City is helping in the Consumer Electronics Show, or CES 2021.
When you scan the food, you will know the nutritious information and how many calories you're consuming. It also collects data about how much food is wasted. With that information, we can reduce food waste or offer personal healthcare services.
It's also good for the environment because Less waste means less energy to produce the food and lower methane emissions from landfills. 90 scanners have already been installed across the country, and the company is developing a mobile application. Another company chosen by Seoul City is medical startup MediWhale. Its software, Dr. Noon, which means Dr. Eye in Korean, is an artificial intelligence diagnostic device which delivers quick medical checkups by scanning the eyes. With a simple eye scan, this AI technology can detect problems with your eyes, heart, and blood vessels in just 2 minutes.
Actually, we're focusing on the eye because I have the many potential to predict the other diseases. We believe that we could see the many other diseases, systemic diseases, which is very critical for a human being.
South Korea's Ministry of Food and Drug Safety has approved Dr. Noon, and it is already being exported to other countries like Singapore and Indonesia. As people have to pay to see the displays in CES 2021, Seoul City has opened a free website, smartseoul.net, to promote the selected 15 startups. 장태현, Arirang News.
For South Korea's full-time salaried workers, it'll be time to file taxes next month. And so this Friday, the National Tax Service is going to start providing the data you'll need to report your income and do your deductions. Just log into the NTS website at hometax.go.kr. It'll be open until the 15th of February, before the filing deadline on the 28th. To prevent the system from crashing, each user can only log in for 30 minutes at a time. Taxpayers could save some money this year because the government is raising the percentage of your credit card spending that you can deduct from your income to as high as 80% in the months when the pandemic last year started to take its toll. Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Yang Jun-seok, professor of economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, good to have you back on.
Happy to be here.
Well, stocks on Wall Street closed a little higher overnight, stabilizing from the big drop a day before. Today, the Korean market was up after a bit of a dip in the morning. What's the story in the global and the local markets?
Okay, well, the big story was the fall in the U.S. markets on Monday, where Dow fell by 0.3%, S&P by 0.7%, and NASDAQ by fell by 1.3%. It was such a big news because all three indices have been doing so well in the last few weeks. Now, why did it fall? The analysts point out that the market interest rate is rising. The central bank, the Fed's policy rate hasn't changed, but because of the expectation of future growth and inflation under the new Biden administration, the market interest rate seems to be rising. The Treasury bond 10-year note yield reached 1.187%. That's the highest since March. And 30-year bond rate also climbed to 1.88%, which is, again, highest since March of last year. And tech companies especially may find it harder to expand because of these higher interest rates. And there were also concerns about the high price-earning ratios. And it's not just the stock market. Bitcoins also fell by more than $2,500 on Monday as well. Though unlike the stock market, it also fell on Tuesday. Now, it's a bit surprising, but analysts are not really mentioning the current political instability in the U.S. and the threats of violence. They believe that it's the interest rate which is playing the more important part in the stock market fall on Monday. But the European markets and the Asian markets, they do seem to be affected by the American instability. The EU markets, it fell on Monday, and it also fell on Tuesday. In the Asian markets, the Nikkei and Hang Seng rose on both Monday and Tuesday, but Shanghai rose on Monday and fell on Tuesday, again partially because of the concerns about U.S. instability. Now, Kospi, it rose today, but today was one of the few days since last November where we had a rising market, but it did not reach a historical closing high. Now, the analysis The reports are saying that while Kospi index has risen, it's largely because of the rising Samsung Electronics stock. About half the companies in Kospi, their values are not rising all that much. It fell on Monday and Tuesday, but it rose today by 0.71% to 3,148.29. Kosdaq, it fell on Monday and Tuesday, but it rose today by 0.56%, 979.13.
Got it. All right, Professor, we're up against the clock today, so we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for sharing your insights. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.